Welcome to the February episode of Representing Leominster. I'm your state representative, Natalie Higgins, and we're actually filming today's episode on Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day. I'm hoping that you got a chance to spend an awesome day with your loved ones. And I'm here with two of my favorite people, Natalie and Diane from the Leominster nurses from Leominster Hospital. And while I would love to have you on the show anytime, I'm a little sad that it's for this reason. So I don't know if you've been seeing the nurses standing out in Leominster and Fitchburg lately with a lot of signs. Could you tell me what's going on and why you're doing these standouts?
Yes, sure. The nurses at Leominster Hospital have been negotiating a contract since August of 2019. The hospital has drawn a hard line with their proposals to cut nursing staff and to cut valuable resources that we need in order to care for our patients safely. We're out there on the streets with our signs trying to let the public know what's going on. That's why we're there.
Sure. And can you give me a little bit of background? How long have you both been working at Leominster Hospital? Like, what units do you work in?
Sure. I've actually been within the UMass system for nearly 32 years, 19 of those years over at Leominster Hospital. I'm a staff nurse over on Foster Wing.
I've been at Leominster Hospital for 33 years. It'll be 34 on Monday.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
And I work on the med-surg unit. That's where I've been my whole career.
Very, very awesome. So tell me a little bit about kind of what your contract looks like now. How is that working? What are you working with now, and how does that work for patients?
Yeah, so currently we have a limit, a cap on how many patients each nurse can take, and that's up to 5. And also, back in 2015, we negotiated a lot of these patient safety contract language, and we got a stat nurse, which was valuable, very, very valuable.
What's a stat nurse?
So a stat nurse is somebody that is very skilled and adept, and that nurse will go around from unit to unit, and wherever he or she is needed as a second set of eyes, an extra pair of hands. If somebody is decompensating and they're starting to go downhill and not do well, that nurse will be called in. The stat nurse also will respond to rapid response codes, code blues. So again, if a patient's condition is deteriorating quickly, they come to the scene quickly, and they can give us some expert help. And again, like I said, they are extra hands. A lot of times the hospital is very, very busy. They can go to certain units and help decompress those areas.
And I cut you off. There was another piece.
And we also, in 2015, when we negotiated that contract, we got language that says the charge nurse would not take a patient assignment, and that is monumental in the fact that if you have a nurse that's on your unit that can come and not have to worry about her own patient group, that can come and say, do you need some help? If a patient is particularly difficult, or if you have a difficult IV or something that needs to be done that you can't get to because you have your other patients to care for, that charge nurse is very monumental and very important, instrumental in making sure that the flow of the floor works and that the nurses get the help they need.
Sure. So these have been in place since 2015.
Yep.
And now you're in new contract negotiations. And what are the proposals? What are you proposing? What is the hospital proposing to?
So right
change?
now, like Natalie had said earlier, they've really drawn a hard line in the sand, and they are determined to get every nurse up to 6 patients instead of the 5 that we have capped at this point. They're also looking to take off the limit in the ED so that the ED nurse, the emergency room nurse, can take any unlimited amount of patients.
In the emergency department, they're just going to take off completely the limit.
No cap whatsoever, no protections whatsoever. And so, I mean, that nurse may have 5 patients, that nurse may have 10 patients. And you never know which one is coming through that is waiting for an ICU critical care bed. They could have a few of those on their assignment. So there's no protections whatsoever. So the hospital wants to remove those limits, and like I said, move nurses up to 6. They also want to eliminate the stat nurse position, which When we started negotiations and they put that proposal across the table, we asked them if they had checked in with anybody else, any of the nurses, any other staff, to see what their thought was, whether they thought this was a valuable position or not. And again, we've had it since 2015. And their comeback was no, we didn't. We didn't ask anybody. We didn't survey anybody. We're just looking to remove it. So we took a pretty unofficial survey, but we surveyed a lot of the staff, whether it was nurses, doctors, aides, anybody, and there were more than 300 signatures on this petition that said, yes, indeed, we find that stat nurse role to be extremely valuable.
And you shared that with the hospital. What was their reaction to that?
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you, exactly. They had no interest in seeing whether it was a valuable role or not, and when they found out that it was, they still had no interest. Again, they wanted to remove the cap on the patients, the nurses' limits. They wanted to remove the stat nurse, and
Charge.
they also wanted to have the charge nurses go and take an assignment. And so those were all, they're three big proposals to us, and when you see us out and about in the public, that's what we're talking about, the big three takeaways, because they really are drastic cuts to patient protections.
So you did a survey of your own staff and nurses at the hospital. Did you make any proposals in the contract negotiation for
Yes.
on your own?
We believe that, studies are out there, I can't quote them all, they're all out there that say that for every patient above 4, the risk of harm increases. So we propose that the nurses take 4 patients.
Right.
We 4 patients. We wanted to also add not just a med-surg stat nurse, which they cover just the med-surg unit. We wanted to add a critical care stat nurse, which also she would have the emergency room and the ICU to cover as an extra pair of hands. She would help transport patients, help the flow of the units to get people moved through the system. Those are our proposals. I mean, it's not, I don't think that's being unreasonable. And we believe as nurses working the floors, because we do work the floors, that 4 patients is probably is the correct number.
Yeah, and we find ourselves now at negotiations. They've been pretty contentious, and really they have been pretty hard-nosed at, this is it, this is where we draw the line, these are the things we want to take away from the contract, and we have, losing my, hold on. Sorry.
It's okay.
I lost my train of thought of where I was going with that.
Things they want to take away from the contract.
Yeah. What would, I don't know. What was the rest of that question?
So we can go back to that question. So what did you, as did the nurses, make their own proposals to the hospital in the contract negotiations? What would you like to see in your contract?
Well, like I said, we did propose that our numbers go to 4. We did propose that we add a critical care stat nurse. We also proposed that we add Martin Luther King Day. I actually, the surprise at the fact that the hospital proposed what they proposed has pretty much struck us dumb. Like, I can't believe that people who actually work in the health care field and who propose to say our patients mean a lot to us, the care, exceptional care, that they would think that me carrying 6 patients is caring for the patient. Like, I don't understand that. So, the things that we want, we think 4. We think 4, and it's an important thing. And 4 is a better way to care for patients. You have the time to do what you need to do, to find and to catch little changes that you wouldn't normally be able to catch if you're running around trying to take care of 5, 6 patients. It's hard to do. So the patients are at risk. Their proposals put our patients at risk, and that's why we're out there. We're out there in the cold, the snow, the rain, every day of the week, holding our signs because the community needs to know.
I think what's important to remember, too, is we have had these safeguards in our contract since 2015. they've been working. They've been working well. And I'm not going to say that some days 5 isn't too much, and that's why we know personally, we know through the studies that 4 is a better number. But given the stance that the hospital has taken, we're kind of on the defensive right now, and we really are trying to protect those safeguards in our contract. The hospital has done a lot of cutting, deep cuts in every department, and honestly, we've gotten to the bare bone. We really can't go any further, and these cuts that they're proposing bring us further. They bring us into very unsafe territory.
Right, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you on was to make sure that folks understood what was going on, understood the background here, and I was hopeful that the hospital was going to join us. We extended an invitation, and unfortunately they weren't able to join us this morning, but we do have the statement that they put in the Sunday paper, a full-page statement in the Sunday paper where they said that they do support the nurses and value the nurses, so it's disappointing to hear that you've been providing them with data that you've gone out and collected on your own, and that they're not willing to take that. And we have been trying so much as the whole North Central Mass delegation, right? We have interest in the Leominster Hospital, the Fitchburg Hospital, the Clinton Hospital, making sure that our services remain up here in North Central Mass, because for too many of our community members, they can't access services in Worcester or further away. And when we lost the inpatient pediatric unit, I just want to thank all of our nurses for speaking up about that, for the cardiac and pulmonary rehab, but I'm still coming into contact with folks who have no idea that those services have been cut and are really blindsided, and some of the proposals that I've been hearing about and just trying to understand, and right, I'm not a nurse.
Right.
Well,
I'm not a medical professional, but I want to understand, but from a basic patient, I've been a patient, right? Like I would imagine a lot of our patients in our hospitals are sicker, right, than they've ever been, because you can send most folks home.
Right. They come in with far more complex health issues. And you referred to the ad that was in the paper, and a lot of that ad talked about the changes going on in the emergency room, and I think we want to make sure that we cover those also. About 3 years ago, they broke ground on the expansion over at the hospital, and they made it much larger, gave us many more beds. But the interesting thing is, here we are in 2020, and they're proposing approximately
cutting positions in the emergency room.
10 full-time positions is what I've been told.
Exactly.
And despite the M&A and the nurses saying this is not safe, we don't have enough people as it is now. And when you listen to what the hospital tells you, 5 years ago they said, we need a bigger ER. We need a bigger ER. We have more patients. We need more space to house the mental health patients, the pediatric patients. We need a bigger space. We need a bigger space. So they broke ground, made a bigger space, and now they're saying, we don't need this big space. We don't need all the nurses anymore. So they don't make any sense to me what they're doing and what they're saying. And this is dangerously unsafe, cutting staff from the emergency room, because we are the first line of defense. That emergency department is the first line of defense. And they can't close and lock their doors and say, oh, we've reached capacity, like Mr. Roach has alluded to.
I want to clarify that, because I just want to make sure folks don't miss that.
Right.
Because I was a really vocal proponent of safe patient limits on the ballot. And that was a really disappointing
very disappointing
loss. But to be clear, one of the scare tactics that they used in the ballot campaign and in this letter is that if we had patient limits in the ER, we would, if you hit that limit, you would be closing the ER and you wouldn't be accepting any patients. That's not allowed to happen, right?
Correct. No, there is a law that we cannot just transfer people out of the emergency room because we've decided we're full. We can't do that. They talk to us about volume being down, but when you look at the true numbers, the volume is not down. They are busting at the seams and trying to do everything they can to move the patients up to the floors. But again, they've already started kind of decreasing their numbers of staff down there. If people have left, they haven't replaced them. And what happens is you just don't have enough staff to deal with those patients. So the answer isn't to cut nurses.
Right.
The answer is to hire more to be able to do the work to care for the patients.
And to have enough staff to take care of the patients at peak times. We're not here saying that the emergency room has 100 people in there every single day, every minute of every day.
No.
They have peaks and flows like everywhere else. The issue here is that the hospital has systematically closed departments. We have a whole entire floor that's closed. They closed it. So as you're sitting in the emergency room waiting for a bed, we have closed floors because they've laid off nurses, eliminated positions, not hired. So now you have the emergency room nurses who are taking care of the emergency department patients these are true emergencies. And then you have emergency department nurses caring for patients that are waiting for an inpatient bed, be it a floor, be it the ICU or a step-down unit. They're waiting. They're being housed down there. So how can you tell me you need to eliminate positions? It makes no sense to me, and it's so unsafe what they're proposing. It's a lot of positions.
Yeah.
And to go back to that claim that if you had patient limits in the ER, right? They're proposing to take it away. It already exists.
Right.
It's existed since 2015.
Right.
Correct.
And so
And there has not been a problem.
that hasn't not worked, right?
Right.
No.
Nobody has ever closed the doors.
Right.
That has not happened. We need to make that clear. It has not happened. It will not happen in the future. There is a law that says you cannot do that. You need to care for the people that are there.
Right.
And they do. So it makes no sense to take the limit off. The cap of patients that they can take.
Yeah, and I've heard from some of the ER nurses that they're also proposing kind of another reorganization of the ER and
Yes.
proposing layoffs.
Yes.
Can you just
Yeah,
walk
We
through
were
what
just
that
notified.
means for patients?
We've been notified that they want to reduce positions in the emergency department. Now, as Diane said, the hospital has already started that kind of covertly. Nurses resign, they don't
They
post
don't
a
fill the
position.
positions.
They don't fill it. They just don't post it, they don't fill it. So they've already started to do that. Now they've proposed just a blatant, we need to cut this many more positions. So the Mass Nurses Association and the nurses at the hospital that work there, we have argued against it. We have taken their math that they've used to tell us, because we've asked, well, how did you get to this number that you think we have too many nurses? And they gave us finally, after multiple requests, they finally gave us the formula that they used, which was a formula from a study in 2001, that apparently 2001, that's a lot of years ago.
Yeah.
So, and we tried to tell them, we did our own math, we tried to give them, this doesn't make sense, you should be hiring nurses, not reducing, and nope. They're not going to, they are going forward with their layoff and their reorg.
Yeah, and I believe that's the third one in 5 years.
Third one in 5 years. Yep.
Okay,
Yes, yep,
But we need a bigger ER.
yep.
sure.
So, I mean, the bottom line is we're fighting hard every day to get the contract right. We are fighting not to allow all these takeaways. It is very, very important to patient care and safety that we win that. And the nurses are as adamant as the administration right now that we're not going to give in to this, because long ago, when Natalie and I went to nursing school, we were taught that you are an advocate for your patient. And this is the ultimate advocate for your patient, because if we can't supply safe staffing numbers to them, we certainly can't supply safe care to them. So we will fight for as long as we need to, and as hard as we need to get administration to understand that this is not okay.
And I will tell you, Diane and I are nurses. We can save your life in a second. We are not TV personalities.
That's
So
true.
I appreciate you coming on.
So the fact that we are both
This
here.
is out of our comfort zone.
It's out of our comfort zone that we're both here to discuss this can tell you a little
Right.
inkling of how strongly we feel.
Yeah.
And her and I feel very strongly about it. There were nurses that I drove by this morning out there with signs, it's 20 degrees out.
I saw them on my way here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these nurses, they're not driven by us. They're asking constantly every day, what can we do? We can't let this happen. What can we do? What can we do?
And so how can the community plug into what you're doing, learn more, support you, aside from just bringing you coffee and donuts because it's so cold?
Yeah, well, I mean, when they see us out and about, they certainly can honk,
Yeah.
wave, thumbs up, any of that lets the nurses know that you are definitely behind us. That's great, but we also have a website at the Mass Nurses.
And we're going to get it up on the screen
Yeah.
so that folks can see it.
So if they go to that, they can sign a petition. We are gathering petitions from the community.
Sure.
They can get placards,
To put in the car,
signs,
yep.
anything like that.
Lawn signs, yep.
You'll see, and they're already up in certain businesses, the signs where they support the nurses and what's going on in the businesses, up in the windows and stuff.
And do you have a big event this weekend? Is something coming up this weekend?
Yeah.
So we're going to have a group standout, once a week on Saturday mornings. We pick a highly trafficked area, and all of the departments that have been out during the week all conglomerate in one area for a couple of hours with our signs. So we are going to be at the corner of Summer Street and John Fitch Highway in front of Carol's Dairy Bar,
Awesome.
the fire station, and Little Caesar's Pizza at that corner with our signs, and we'll have petitions, we'll have lawn signs, we'll have car placards, and we encourage people to come and hold signs with us, people to come and sign our petitions, honk the horn, whatever you need to do. But
The more the merrier.
The more the merrier, because we believe that the community needs to know what's happening inside those doors.
Yeah.
Because they don't, the information they've offered is not complete. I'll say it that way.
Sure. No, Natalie, Diane, thank you so much for being willing to come on the show.
Thank you for
I've been doing
having
this
us.
for 3 years, and this is still uncomfortable. The lights are really bright, so I get it. But really, seriously, thank you for constantly being there to sound the alarm and raise awareness in the community of what's going on with the hospital. We're so lucky to have a community hospital in Leominster, and I want to make
Yes,
sure
we
that
are.
it can care for everyone in our community.
And we're lucky to have you as an advocate for us, because we will go and talk to anybody we need to talk to, because it's important. It's that important. And like you said, there's not a lot of communities that have a community hospital. If you look around, they're closing them, consolidating them, moving them to bigger cities like Worcester, and so to have a community hospital and to retain services is important. And the community, they need to get behind this. We need to keep our hospital and keep our services, because, like you said, it's not easy to get to Worcester.
And I, giving thanks to people that give us a chance and opportunity to speak to. You'll notice that Natalie and I coordinated our clothing today, and we're wearing our M&A scrub tops. And we definitely want to thank the M&A for giving us a platform, for giving us the assistance to have a voice out in the community too, because that's important. Not all hospitals have unions, and so and I've worked at non-union hospitals, so I know you don't always have that ability to be heard.
Yeah.
And normally with numbers comes some strength, and your
To
voice is
organize and support each other.
right. Your voice is heard a little bit more loudly. So I definitely want to give them a plug, because I'm happy that we have that opportunity to come on shows like this and to go places and speak publicly about what's going on.
So I hope you'll all take a chance to meet Diane, Natalie, and the other nurses when they're standing out for as long as you're going to be there, as long as it takes.
As long as it takes. It's that important.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee we'll be doing standouts, but we have things. There are things, and we will continue to keep the public involved. These things are for the public.
Right.
Because all the nurses inside the building know what's going on.
Yeah.
They all know what's going on. We need the community and the public to know what's going on. And the patients that come into our hospital, they know. They see us. They see us trying to...
The craziness.
Well, trying to keep up and trying to keep them safe. And, to say, and now take another patient. No. So the community needs to know, and we thank you for this opportunity. As I said, it's important that we have people on our side that will go on Access Television and say, this is not right.
Yeah.
So
It's always great to see you.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on the show. So that wraps our February episode. I want to do one little plug because there's a special thing coming up every 10 years. It's the census, and it's really important that Leominster residents get counted. That means vital federal dollars, state dollars. It also means our districts can change, so your representatives and your senators can change in terms of how many people how large of a community they represent. So you're going to be seeing a postcard, most likely in the mail, coming up next month, giving you the opportunity to go on, fill it out online, or fill it out over the phone, and then you're all set. 10 questions, 10 minutes, super easy. We got to make sure that everyone is filling out the census this year. So if you have any questions, reach out to my office. If you want to get involved, we have a complete count committee in Leominster, and we're hoping to get them on the show next month. We're going to see what we can do, but you'll be hearing more and more about the census until we get through that period in May. So thanks, everyone, and see you next month.